All right, good morning, guys. I guess you just finished up with your do not question. It says, in your own words, explain what fiscal policy is and how you think it affects the U.S. economy as a whole. So, last lesson we discussed fiscal policy. Remember, we discussed the word fiscal first, basically saying, hey, if you put the word fiscal with anything, usually it's talking about money. Fiscal law, okay, laws about money. Fiscal policy, fiscal discussion, whatever it may be, it's usually referring to money. So, fiscal policy, usually talking about the laws that the government creates, to help manage the money. Whether it be saying, "Hey, we're going to pass this new law to increase taxes or decrease taxes." Hey, we're going to pass this law saying, "Hey, we're going to spend this much money on defense or this much money on healthcare," whatever it may be. So, a lot of different ways you came about that one. Just make sure you guys have 4 sentences. All right, so today we're going to be taking fiscal policy. We're taking a couple steps further. And so now that we kind of know what it is, now we're going to kind of discuss on what fiscal policy actually does and what that kind of looks like. So it's going to be kind of a general overview. So there's a lot more details to this. I can get a lot more down to the weeds, but we're just going to try to keep it simple for today. So first thing we're going to discuss, something called price stability, where the general price level in an economy does not change much over time. So if prices are stable, that means they're staying relatively the same amount. You don't see a huge increase in prices. You don't see a huge decrease in prices. They might vary, 1%, 2% here and there, maybe a little bit or even less than that. But, you don't see a gallon of milk going from $3 to, $7 a gallon overnight. So prices stay pretty much the same. So now we move on to how fiscal policy affects this. So what laws, what policies does the government put in place to help keep the prices stable? How do they intervene to help keep, milk $3 a gallon or, this service roughly this price? So a couple of ways they affect it. And once again, this is not an all-inclusive list. These are just a couple of examples. So first off, by controlling inflation and deflation rate. So we talked about inflation in the past as the general increase in prices over time in the economy. So what can the government do to help increase inflation if we need to, or to decrease inflation? Passing certain laws saying, hey, we'll put a price cap on this, or a price ceiling on this, or a price floor on this, so on and so forth. Then we move on to adjusting tax rates. If we want to keep price the same, how can we make sure that people aren't spending, more money than they need to on certain products? Say, oh, we'll increase the tax on this, we want to increase it, or hey, we'll decrease the tax or the sales tax or something like that. So the government's not going to step in and tell Walmart, hey, you need to increase your price or you need to decrease your prices. No, what they are going to do is say, hey, we'll maybe increase the tax rate or decrease the tax rate. So they're still interfering in the whole market process, but they're not, going, store to store telling you exactly what to do. They're just trying to affect it as much as they can without getting too much involved themselves. So, controlling inflation and deflation, adjusting tax rates, and then we have Federal Reserve interest rates. This one's a little more complicated. So, we talked about in the past how when banks loan us money to use, we are going to pay them back with a certain level of interest. So, I borrow $1,000, the bank says, okay, you'll pay me back 10% in interest. And so, that interest is how much money, they make in profit. So, when the banks need to get money themselves, they will borrow money from the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve, in order to give banks incentive to make them want to borrow more money, they will lower the interest rate. Because if it's cheaper to buy, go back to basic supply and econ concepts. If the price is lower, that means people are going to buy more. If the prices are higher, it means people are not going to buy as much. So if the Federal Reserve lowers the price on the money to borrow, banks are going to be like, okay, awesome. I want to buy more and more money. I want to get more loans. But if they increase it, that's the government's way of saying, hey, we don't want you to borrow as much money. And so, if you need to, pause for a second, finish getting this jotted down, and continue on. So next up, we have something called full employment. This is something we've discussed in the past. I rehashed the definition, so if you already have it in your notes, you don't have to recopy it. This is just for kind of reference here. But if you remember, full employment is when no cyclical unemployment exists. Basically means that everybody that wants a job has a job. And if people are unemployed, that means they're either in between jobs or, in some manner of speaking, they're choosing not to get a job. So, we have full employment. How does fiscal policy affect the employment rates. So once again, not an all-inclusive list, just a couple of examples. So first off, job creation. So if the government wants to, it can create jobs. Whether it be saying, hey, we want to hire 50 people to go help clean up national parks. Or hey, we want to open up a new branch to the DMV. The government can literally create jobs to help this, to help reach full employment. Also, tax incentives. Lowering taxes on businesses who hire certain people. So a lot of the times, if you have somebody who's maybe disabled, maybe they're blind or they have some other issue, the government will actually say, "Hey, Walmart, if you hire this person, help them find something for them to do, give them a job so they're working, being productive, we will make sure you don't have to pay as much of this tax, or we'll lower your taxes on this." So it gives businesses incentive to want to hire more people. And then, other things that the government likes. So if the government tells Walmart, hey, Walmart, we will lower the amount of taxes you got to pay us if you put solar panels on all your Walmart stores. Because us as the government want people to use less coal energy. So say, hey, if you use solar panels, we'll cut back on the amount of taxes you got to pay us. So like I said, not an all-inclusive list, but just a couple of examples. And finally down here in the middle, we have economic growth. An increase in the capacity of an economy to produce goods and services compared from one time to another. So it's basically just a long way of saying, hey, as a country or as an economy, we have the ability to create more goods and services this year than we did last year. We've talked about this in the past, how we have economic expansion. So this is kind of what this is referring to. So that's like saying, okay, today in 2020, we have the ability to make more cars than we did in 1950. We have more factories, we have more workers, we have more resources. And so this is all it's referring to. So once again, how does fiscal policy, how can it affect this? One example, gradual increase in GDP. So when the government's looking to say, hey, how can we increase GDP? What are some things we can do? What are some laws we can pass? What trade agreements can we make so that we produce more goods and services? And then secondly, consumer spending. Government basically says, how can we give people incentive to want to buy more stuff? Especially right now with the current situation that's going on, the government's saying, hey, we want people to spend more money, because if people are spending money, businesses are making money. Businesses are making money. Toby, calm down. If businesses are making money, then they can stay in business, they can hire more people, and they can keep the economy going. So once again, all goes back to the government trying to influence the economy, not fully taking charge of it. Well, what can we do to help things out if the economy's not doing so well? So that's generally what this whole thing is about. So with all that being said, if you guys have any questions, shoot me an email, write a comment down below. You'll have all the notes for today and the do not question. No other questions, no other issues. I'll see you next time.